Okay, we are live.
Okay.
So Mutni, you can start.
Okay. Very good evening, everyone. Welcome to this weekly talk of Crohn's and Colitis Squad. As you know, every week we get in some topics and we discuss with experts in this area. So, before starting, I would just like to give a brief intro about who we are. Crohn's and Colitis Squad, is a group of young adults who are all suffering from some form of IBD and trying to create a better future for our future IBD patients with the motive of making India IBD aware. So please do join us and join our group and help us in spreading the awareness. So today, this week, our topic is COVID-19 and IBD, how to deal this situation. So everyone are really confused, I guess. So this is the most necessary topic I feel so today, and we have with us Dr. Anjanappa from Bangalore, and Dr. Anjanappa is a surgical gastroenterologist with around 40 plus years of experience. He pursued his MBBS in the year of 1979, and he did his MS in KIMS Hubli, and now he's currently practicing in his own nursing home in Bangalore. Prior to this, he also served in KIMS Bangalore as medical superintendent, and he was also a lecturer in many medical colleges. Dr. Anjanappa is the most celebrated doctor here because for the unconditional service that he is giving to the very unprivileged crowd, and with the very different knowledge he has already served many people with his service, and also he has traveled across the countries to gain more expertise. So let's welcome him to this talk. Welcome Dr. Anjanappa for this talk.
Thank you very much, Ma. Good evening to all of you.
Thank you. So today's topic is dealing COVID situation having IBD. So before starting, we all want to know like what exactly is this COVID. So can you give a brief intro?
It's really important. Everybody is expecting why. Again, we should go talk about COVID. Already 7 months old, a pandemic disease which started in China. It's a viral disorder. All of you know about it. It started from China and is spread to more than 220 countries. And these pandemics, we get once in 10 to 15 years. Usually epidemics are common, and particularly this virus, novel coronavirus, I keep on telling. So anyway, in between, thanks for your introduction. I feel always proud to mention that I'm a teacher in a medical college in addition to my profession as surgical gastroenterologist. But this particular talk, it will by doctors, particularly Dr. Manjunath from Jaydeva. He always used to mention a word, idiot syndrome, internet derived knowledge by all of you. Without proper
Okay.
interpretation, you get into trouble and you try to put us in trouble also. Just as a passing remark, I am making this comment.
Yes,
Don't
that's
get
where we need
offended.
experts like you.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. So it's my responsibility. I keep on talking for some time. At the end, we will take questions from you all, whatever question. But
Yeah.
today, particularly, yeah, regarding Corona, just 10 minutes back, I gave a bite to one of the TV, Kannada channel, public TV. Up to which month will this Corona will come to an end by Deepavali? They wanted to know. I said, all pandemic or endemic or epidemic diseases, particular respiratory diseases, they will reach a peak, then they have to come down. And again, I said, I used two medical words, how it can come down. One thing is herd immunity. I will try to tell you what is this herd immunity. Second is vaccine. Unfortunately, till now, we didn't get a proper vaccine. Though we are getting a lot of news, China is releasing a vaccine, India is releasing, it is yet to come. Any viral vaccine, antiviral vaccine, it takes a lot of time. We had our previous experience with chickenpox, mumps, and even polio, all caused by virus only, even HIV. But this particular virus, it is very difficult to get a vaccine because it is known to mutate. Anyway, apart from that, what else can bring down this epidemic, this pandemic? Herd immunity. Many people, they ask us, doctor, what is this herd immunity? See, initially, all of you remember this disease was traced from China, and those who came from abroad, they got down international airport Campegoda. So they were from there, they were trying to trace this virus from where he got it, where he is going to spread. That's why he was quarantined, all those things. But now, if they keep on doing this test, we see many people, they have never left the house, but still the test comes positive. So this indicates there is a herd immunity. Already this virus has spread in the community. So that is herd immunity. What is the great advantage of this herd immunity? No, more number of people, if they get infected, more resistance automatically we develop. That is how this virus will come down. That's why we can expect at least by November, December, January. Again, regarding temperature, when I say this is a cold season, does the virus survive more comparatively compared to a hot temperature like in April, May? But there are few viruses, they are heat level, particularly HIV virus. But some of these coronavirus are not to that extent. But it is given in our textbook, it is our knowledge also. In 56 degrees centigrade, any virus will die in seconds. In 37 degrees centigrade, it will die in few minutes. At 4 degrees centigrade, it remains for a long time. Anyway, our in country temperature will never come down below 20. That is apart. And again to remind you all, there was a comment whether this virus was manufactured by Chinese, released to the world for a biological war. It is not true. ನಾನು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಿದೆ, ಇದು ಕಡಲೆಪುರಿ ಅಲ್ಲ to manufacture and send it ಅಂತ. See, why I use these terminologies? No, everybody should have a scientific temperament. That's what, as a scientist, as a surgeon, as a teacher, coming from a village background, I always feel proud to say that everybody should have a scientific temperament. Because unfortunately, we have seen a lot of highly educated, qualified people, they believe in some, all these things, wrong news, so false news, all those things. So as long as you don't have a scientific temperament, you get into trouble. With this introduction of COVID virus, it will come to an end most probably by December or January. But the only problem is you can get another virus, a variant, brother or sister of this corona, that is always expected. But this pandemic really scared the entire world. And always I kept on telling, It is a deadly spreader, not a deadly killer. This statement, this is a deadly virus by media, unfortunately threatened everybody. That should not have happened. That is where I was very successful in educating the people, giving some confidence. My talks in have become so viral. In fact, my first Facebook talk with Lavanya, it went to many lakhs. From there, I started really as a surgeon, as a scientific person. I was able to give some confidence to the people, and I'm very proud of your organization. Today I'm talking through your, what is the name of the organization?
Crohn's and
Uh,
Colitis Squad.
huh?
Crohn's and Colitis Squad.
Oh, lovely. There is a group called Crohn's and Colitis.
Yes,
Wonderful.
doctor.
How many
Yeah,
members are
yeah.
there, ma?
As of now, even we have started through a Facebook group. So we are trying to build like more than like around 300, 400 members are there. So we are just trying to create awareness about this situation, this condition through Facebook, and shortly we'll be like getting on fields and trying to bring in more awareness. So that is where we need
It's a
support from
wonderful,
you doctors.
ma, it is a wonderful concept. Honestly, I will tell you, let me be very frank. To give a talk on this topic, I have gone through my textbook of medicine. Offhand, we cannot see some topics on appendicitis, on hernia. I can talk me in the middle of the night. If you wake me up, I can give a talk. This particular topic, no. A old patient is better than a new doctor. I'm sure. What
Very
is the
true.
name? I forgot. Kumudini. I will
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
you will have a better knowledge than a fresh MBBS graduate regarding these kind of diseases. This we should accept. ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ
Very
ಮೊದಲೇ
true,
ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ,
doctor.
ಹಳೆ
Yeah.
ವೈದ್ಯ ಹಳೆ ರೋಗಿ ಹೊಸ ವೈದ್ಯನಿಗಿಂತೂ ಉತ್ತಮ. The old patient is much better than a new doctor. Honestly true. If some of
Very
the
true.
diseases, no, you think doctor knows everything. It is not possible. See, to give you a correct information, it's my responsibility to go through the literature. Though I am a surgeon, though I am a surgical gastroenterologist, to answer many of your questions which I am expecting later, without preparation, it is difficult. Offhand, you cannot ask any doctor. And already you must have had an experience. Who should treat this disorder? Is it a physician?
Exactly,
Is it a surgeon?
exactly.
Is it a surgical gastroenterologist? Is it a medical gastroenterologist? Unfortunately, our allopathy system has got too many specialists. Today, we have got proctologists, we have got hepatobiliary surgeons. So, ultimately, who is the right person to give? And the treatment panels and the concept keeps on changing. So, what happens if you go to a wrong consultant, you always get a wrong treatment. There is another beautiful
Yeah.
statement in our system. If you give a rare diagnosis, you will be rarely correct. This is my professor always used to say. When we say, as in a clinical presentation, we have to examine the patient after taking the history, offer the diagnosis to the professor when we are presenting the case. Always used to tell, if you give a rare diagnosis, you will be rarely correct. Because I'm telling you, in India, anyway, I'm yet to come to Crohn's disease. In India, tuberculosis is so common. Once in a way, if you used to say, sir, this is a case of Crohn's disease, my professor used to scold me. In India, Crohn's disease is so rare. If you give a rare diagnosis, you are rarely correct, used to say. But today, honestly, I'm telling you, Crohn's disease is not a rare disease in India. This is what happened when we were undergraduate students. Even when I was a postgraduate student, the first diagnosis used to be only tuberculosis of intestine, not Crohn's disease. Anyway.
Yes, doctor. That is where many wrong diagnoses happened with many of us.
Really,
like many people
really.
suspected it could be TB, and we were like wrongly diagnosed.
Yes, ma'am. See, again, in allopathy system, if your diagnosis is not correct, treatment will
Yeah.
never be correct. This is one, remember. Abdomen. Abdomen is a magic box. It's a temple of surprises. This was a very start. Whenever you make a diagnosis of an abdomen, be careful. Always remember, it's a magic box. It's a temple of surprise. Particularly, it was true when I was a postgraduate because at that time there was no ultrasound scan, there was no CT scan, there was no MRI scan. We had only one barium meal study at that time. But today, we have got so many wonderful gadgets that helps a clinician to arrive at a correct diagnosis. In spite of that, again, that statement, no, it is a temple of, it remains so. For that, I will give you some examples later. Let me start today, particularly before we go to IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, disorder or disease. Before that, many people, they suffer from IBS. IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. Today, I will give more information on irritable bowel syndrome, which is much more common than IBD. IBD syndromes are a group of symptoms. That's where we use this terminology. But before we go to IBD, there's a definite entity. Only two under that. If it affects large bowel, it is ulcerative colitis most of the time. Pathophysiology and all I am going to discuss later. If it is a Crohn's disease, anywhere from mouth to anal canal, it can affect. Invariably, it is small bowel, much more commonly what we see in practice, but that is the difference between ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. It can affect anyone. And regarding GIT, little bit of anatomy, all of us should know. I always say GIT, gastrointestinal system, starts from the mouth, ends at the anal canal. So many people, they should know a bit of anatomy. See, esophagus, when we eat food and swallow, and again, in between, I said it's not a lecture on IBD or IBS. Some information I'll be giving in addition to what we are going to discuss. Your digestion starts in your mouth. Many people say, doctor, they keep on telling, your digestion starts in your mouth. How? God has given parotid glands, salivary gland, two parotid, two submandibular, sublingual. These are the most important glands that secrete saliva. Unfortunately, in India, everybody thinks saliva is for spitting wherever they want. And I will tell you, Corona has taught the people not to spit anyway. I still remember when I was a postgraduate in KMC Hubli, all corners used to be red only. All these Hubli, Dharwad fellows, they used to chew, pan and spit wherever they want. Now they don't spit because of Corona. That I must really thank Corona. It has taught some manners to Indian people.
Yes,
Now
doctor.
they don't keep on spitting.
Actually,
So,
that's
yes, ma'am.
because of Corona, like many people say that we have to build our immunity. But
Yes.
we as IBD patients, we constantly consume immunosuppressants and such drugs. So in that case, like how do we take some precautions? Like, do we have to build our immunity or do we have to like refrain from building immunity?
This is a very, very relevant question during COVID time. Why we are discussing IBD? You rightly took that word. What is this immunity? I'm trying to tell you. See, immunity is an inbuilt system in human body. It is mainly composed of lymphatic system. And all of us, we have got soldiers in our body. They are WBCs. And that's why I started with mouth. So you asked a relevant question now. There are two tonsils here. Dwarapalakaru in Kannada. They are so rich in lymphatic system. And anything that enters your body, either through mouth or respiratory, upper respiratory, they have to pass through that. That guards there. That is the immunity. See, immunity means recognition of a foreign body by human system whenever it enters. These foreign bodies are nothing but either a virus or a bacteria or any other allergen that enters your body. And all these things commonly enter through uh, gastrointestinal system, that is oral cavity, or respiratory system, or they can enter through the skin. So what is the function of this immune system of the body? It has to recognize that this is a foreign body, then it has to gear up to fight this foreign body. So that is the definition of immune system. So as you said, everybody will have a normal immune system, and immune system is always built by our habits and our food particularly. There are few conditions, as you rightly said, immunity goes down because of either the disease or the drugs which are taken for that. See, immunosuppressants are taken in few conditions. One, of course, IBD and this one. So automatically, you become a more prone person. See, initially we said who are all prone to this virus. Those who are above 60 with comorbidities like diabetes, hypertension, or cancer, who are already taking chemotherapy drugs, who are on radiation, or young children below 10 years. And in between this comorbidity, particularly these kind of diseases. So in fact, before going to that, I was trying to give a brief data about the GIT system that I will finish up. And certainly for your direct question, what
Yes, sir.
precautions should we take because we are suppressed because the drugs. So naturally, the standard instruction for everybody was, as far as corona is concerned, it's a respiratory virus. So the droplets travels for 3 meters. So try to see that this virus should not come out in the sense, uh, wear a mask. There are different masks, they said. So never cough in the public. That used to be a habit. People used to sneeze, cough, spit everything. In fact, in the beginning, before the mask came into, we used to teach the people. Suddenly, if you want to cough, you cough like this. Put your arm so that it will not travel further. Then three important things everybody learned today. Everybody wears a mask. Honestly, I will tell you, only people who used to wear mask and cap were surgeons and theater nurses. Now you see everybody wears a mask and a cap. The purpose of wearing a mask by a surgeon and the team in the operation theater is to prevent usually we keep on talking. Many people they think surgeons are very serious. In the theater also we will be talking. I will be talking some jokes also. Understand? Naturally, mantrikinta ugade jasti. When we talk, no, in saliva comes out in droplets. It should not enter the abdomen of the patient. And sometimes to protect our face from whenever we put an incision, splash of blood, it stains our face and eyes. That's why we used to wear mask. Today, mask is a must to prevent either the virus and going out of somebody's system or getting into. So mask is a must, and particularly those who are immunosuppressed, under that N95 mask is a must. See,
Okay.
wearing a mask again, there are a lot of principles. Unfortunately, nobody follows this. And again, social distancing. It was called social distancing. Now we call it as physical distancing, at least 3 feet away from another person. And third is absolutely important, washing the hands with soap for 1.5 minutes at least. We, the surgeons in the operation theater, every case we wash and scrub our hands for 7 minutes. But we taught the people to at least scrub your hands, wash your hands for 1.5 minutes, because this coronavirus has got a fatty layer, that crown. That's why it's called corona. It has got a crown that is made of fatty layer. When you wash your hands, whenever you have touched some article where there may be a droplet, and in the droplet, we told the people the virus can survive for 4 to 17 hours. In air, virus will not travel. That was again, there was a confusion in between whether the virus is flying in the air. That was a study conducted by a group of scientists in a closed room. That became a big news. That's why I told the media people that is only for international webinar discussion among scientists. not for the public. This kind of a common knowledge, common information should be told to the people. Anyway, just to continue, from mouth is vagus, that is 10 inches in length. Then you get the stomach. Stomach is again 10 inches. It's a leather bag. It's a J-shaped organ. Then the small intestine starts. Small intestine, for the information of lay public, it is 6 meters in length. Genudda ಹೊಟ್ಟೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟುದ್ದ ಇಂಟೆಸ್ಟೈನ್, ಇಟ್ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಐ ಟೆಲ್ ಇನ್ ಕನ್ನಡ, ನಿನ್ ಸೀರೆ ಅಷ್ಟುದ್ದ ಇದೆಯಮ್ಮ, ದುಪ್ಪಟದಷ್ಟು ಉದ್ದ. That is the small bowel. There are 3 portions. Duodenum, that is the beginning part of the small intestine, 10 inches in length. Then you get jejunum, then you get ileum, and intestine is a very active muscular organ. Even stomach is also. But stomach is resistant to all these. Though I said Crohn's disease affects commonly small intestine, it can affect stomach also. But because of the powerful acid there and a violent contraction of the stomach, somehow we don't find Crohn's disease more commonly there. And of course, ulcerative colitis is a disease of the large bowel. So small intestine is 6 meters in length. Then it joins cecum, that is the first part of the large intestine, and large intestine is 1.5 meters in length. At the junction of small intestine and large intestine, that is cecum, you have got an appendix. And many people used to think appendix is a useless organ in human beings. And I tell many people and many of my students, never take out an appendix because it is there whenever you open the abdomen. It is called tonsil of the abdomen. You have got tonsils in neck. They have got a lot of lymphatic system. Likewise, appendix has got a lot of lymphatics. That is a very, very important to maintain the immunity of human body. That's why unnecessarily no surgeon should. It used to happen during our days because there was no ultrasound scan. Anybody who used to come with pain abdomen, make a diagnosis of either peptic ulcer or appendicitis. Unnecessarily we used to open the abdomen. If nothing is found, they used to take out the appendix because they used to think appendix is a useless organ. But today we say it's a very useful organ. Unless it gets inflamed, nobody should take out the appendix. So then the large intestine, before I go to ulcerative colitis, probably it may not be possible today. I will complete IBS. So large intestine, cecum, ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon. Then you get rectum, and the last part of the bowel is, large bowel is anal canal. That is 3.75 centimeter or 1.5 inches in length. So these are all the hollow viscous in the abdomen. And of course, we have got solid organs in the abdomen, like liver in the right hypochondrium, weighing about 1,500 grams, 1.5 kg in a male, 1,400 grams in a female. Talk is becoming a little serious. So makes little fun. It is not fun. God is very intelligent man. Why he has given 100 grams less to a lady? Because ladies, they don't. They don't take alcohol. God has given 100 grams extra for male fellows so that they can, because Sura Panigalu, all our gods, they gave them a margin. But our people, they keep on drinking. Ultimately, liver shrinks to 300 grams. You will develop cirrhosis, ascites, and die. Anyway, it is not our topic today. So spleen is there, and pancreas is there in the abdomen, and of course 2 kidneys retroperitoneally. They are almost touching the back. This is the anatomy of the abdomen. So in this abdomen, we have got these 2 important hollow viscera. So that is responsible for your problem. So a few things about IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. See, it's a functional disorder of the intestine. At this stage, I will tell you, there is a pathological disorder in Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis that can be detected by our investigation, which I am going to mention later. But IBS is much more common than IBD. IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, is a functional disorder. There is no pathology there. all investigations will come normal. But unfortunately, the young lady, which this is much more common in young ladies, they keep on suffering from few symptoms. That is a motility disorder, movement of the intestine. It is irritable. That's why it looks like as if though it's very important to know this IBS is affects nearly 20% of the younger generation, but unfortunately, only 10% of the population among them they come to us for a consultation. Young women are affected 2 to 3 times more common than men. And again, you must remember it is a coexisting disease. IBS is a coexisting disease of many non-ulcer dyspepsia, chronic fatigue syndrome, and dysmenorrhea. Particularly, I see a lot of young ladies, particular teachers I have seen. She's a young lady teacher. She cannot attend to her work for a simple reason. She gets some kind of a fatigue, and whenever she starts going to school, she dresses up. She feels like going to washroom. This is the IBS. She goes to all kinds of doctors, homeopathy, allopathy, Tirupati, everything. Unfortunately, she never becomes all right. She never understands what is her problem. That's why I thought of giving this information first before going to Crohn's disease and uh, ulcerative colitis.
So, doctor, is there chance
Yeah.
of having both IBS and IBD together?
Initially, because once we make a diagnosis of ulcerative colitis or this one, we don't consider IBS.
Okay,
Initially,
this.
it may start with IBS. Ultimately, they may land up in the IBD, but both will not coexist because once there is a pathological situation, we don't consider IBS as a part of the disorder. You got it?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, unfortunately,
So,
yeah,
yeah, just getting back to that previous question. So,
yeah.
like, should we build our immunity or should we like just continue with the tablets, whatever we are taking? Like, almost the
You
whole
have to.
nation is like they are taking more of immunity building supplements and zinc tablets, vitamin C tablets. So,
Yeah.
what are the precautions we have to take as IBD patients while we are already taking immunosuppressants?
See, one thing, how to build immunity. There are a lot of products available in the market today. I don't know as a doctor to what extent they are really good, they are really helpful. See, the only best way to build your immunity is your food. And unfortunately, in these disorders, sometimes we say don't take dairy products. Some people they don't tolerate some kind of foods, so it becomes a problem. But this marketed immunity building products, to what extent they are scientifically accepted, we don't know because many a number of times, as a clinician, we never prescribe. They're all marketed through media, social media, in the TV media. But genuinely speaking, I'm not very clear to advise you whether you have to go for these so-called. But no doubt, our food contains most of these minerals because basically when we take food, no, we say carbohydrate, proteins, fats, minor elements, vitamins. All these things are supposed to be in food what we consume. But because of again there are problems of digestion, problem of taking food because you cannot take food like any other normal person, and added to that the immunosuppressive drugs which all these people are taking, they cannot stop that drug. Then how to you have to what should I say, manage in such a way you cannot leave the drugs at the same time all these your food habits and all. I think it's a difficult situation. Exactly, I'm not able to give you the answer for that particular answer because you cannot stop the immunosuppressants at the same
Yeah.
time. Anyway, zinc and all those things, it's available in many combinations. To what extent? Anyway, water soluble vitamins are always, even if you take extra, it goes in the urine. but fat soluble vitamins, they get deposited in the body. So these things, so your immunity mainly depends on your food only. That's what most of the time I keep on telling. So somewhere you have to balance between this and that. That's all I can say.
And also, like while having such a situation like where our immunity is low, and we see so many people outside, they don't wear their masks and they just keep moving around.
Yeah.
In that such a situation, is it okay for us to go for a walk, or even sometimes we have to go for regular checkups and all? So, what are the precautions which you would suggest us to take as we are already immunocompromised?
Certainly, ma. Risk category, when you come under risk category, you have to be extra careful. Definitely, they cannot take a chance of going out without a mask. Mask is a must. And I advise them not to get into whenever there is a crowd. Uh, Anything more than two is definitely a crowd as far as this virus is concerned. So since we know scientifically very well, it's a respiratory virus. It transmits by coughing, sneezing, and even talking. Say they must wear a mask. But walking and all, again now after 7 months, one common statement now. Initially, life is much more important than livelihood. Today, after 7 months, life is also important. Livelihood is also important. You cannot sit at home. You cannot do that. But take all precautions. My sincere advice: they must specially wear a mask, a good mask, and he avoid a crowd, particularly unnecessarily going to places where there are a lot of people. They must avoid that. And once they come back, they have to wash their hands. This is again, it should become a routine part of their life. That's all I can tell
And
you. And
during these
regarding checkups,
situations,
no, regarding checkups, you are telling,
yeah.
definitely the last 3 months I am seeing many specialists, many doctors, they are not seeing patients. They themselves are scared. But I don't know. I never closed my clinic. I've been seeing my patient taking all the care. God's blessing, nothing has happened to me. Even I got once my COVID test done, it came negative. But certainly, when they are in trouble, no, they have to get into hospital. Particularly, suddenly if they lose, they have got some diarrhea. It is known. They go get dehydrated, and naturally they should be treated. But I sincerely tell, all of them should get a COVID test done, not for record's sake. Suddenly, if something happens, no, the first thing most of the hospitals they ask, have you got this test done? So at least if they've got a report whether it is positive or negative, you in an emergency situation they can be admitted, because today private hospitals only thing they always tell, get the test done. And there are few hospitals they have both COVID and non-COVID. Suppose like Suguna Hospital, 100-bed hospital, but few hospitals they are purely COVID. Few hospital non-COVID hospitals. Even if they go to any hospital, first thing they ask is, have you got this test done? And unfortunately, if you give this test, the result it will take 2 to 3 days. So better, all of them should get a COVID. Scientifically, it is correct. Though in social media, some of the doctors they are telling it is unnecessary to get a test done, but it's only for a record. And whenever they get into some kind of a trouble in the night, particularly we have seen either severe bout of vomiting or diarrhea, dehydration, generalized weakness, even anemia, all these things, it is known. So better all of them, at least for another 1 or 2 months, they should get this test done.
And also, many times we end up getting these MRI, CT scans, and
Yeah.
endoscopy or colonoscopy. Like, do you suggest those tests during this time, or should we totally avoid those tests?
If it is not an emergency, I think at this juncture, I say it should be avoided, because not only there is a risk. Second thing, it has become expensive. See, my friend used to do endoscopy for 2,000 rupees. They are charging now 6,000. They say they
Yeah.
put this PPE kit charges also. It's becoming expensive, and they are not emergency investigations. So try to avoid another 2 3 months all these investigations. MRI and all, it's okay. Particularly colonoscopy and endoscopy, better to defer for another 2 3 months unless the consultant insists at this stage it is required. Otherwise, I personally feel should avoid or postpone for another 2 to 3 months.
And also, doctor, what are the first-hand symptoms which we, as immunocompromised people, see if we attack COVID?
See,
When should we actually get cautious?
See, all immunocompromised, no, your resistance is less. See, even a small virus or bacterial infection, they get fever, sore throat, any immunocompromised. Particularly this COVID, we are not seeing so many problems. The worst situation we saw was in HIV only, because automatically WBC count used to come down. Here we have not seen to that extent causing you getting into any trouble because of sudden decrease in immunity and all those things. I don't think so.
And also, like, what is your suggestion for essential workers who are already diagnosed with IBD, like maybe nurses or people who are working in banks? They have to go to their report to their work, and they are already immunocompromised, and this current situation is adding more to that. So, what would be your suggestion for them?
Universal precaution only. I think if they can avoid going to a job, it's okay. But otherwise, I think they can continue to work with all extra precaution. That's what these three are standard only. But if they are able to, somehow I have seen, and it is not that severe distress. If they are in severe distress, no, better to avoid to go to work. Otherwise, I think taking extra care, they can attend to their work.
Okay. And also, many people suggest to have an oximeter at home and check their pulse rates. Do that really works for understanding the lung infection or anything?
Yeah, definitely. Just now, I've got pulse oximeter in my hand here. I got a patient 1 hour back. One lady came from RR Nagar. She was almost in desperate situation. I don't know how she claimed the first floor. She was sitting outside. Suddenly, I went out of my chamber to see. Immediately, I could see her face. I suspected there is definitely a problem. Immediately, I put her. It was showing 56. It should be 95 PO2. It is really very handy, very useful. If the saturation, see, most of the time we can make out by their symptoms. They are not able to breathe. They are not comfortable sitting. But this is a very handy instrument anyway, pulse oximeter that will give a saturation accurately. So if it is less than 90, instead of struggling in the midnight, you can always rush the patient to a center where they can give oxygen, or if they require ventilation, that can be. It is really useful, a pulse oximeter. Another thing you asked me?
Yeah, the same thing.
Checking the pulse, and this itself will give all pulse rate and all. See, the symptoms of respiratory distress, tachypnea, their breathing rate increases, automatically pulse rate increases, tachycardia, and they are something like a fish out of water. They are in really distress, and this is a good monitor. I think most of the time, I suggest to the government and hospitals, you don't admit anybody who is positive, who is keeping good health. Keep some beds vacant for these immunocompromised persons or anybody with respiratory distress due to any reason, not necessarily COVID. There is ILI, there is SARS, there is asthmatic attack, so many other respiratory distresses. Any respiratory distress, the best and the first thing is oxygen by mask. If there is saturation is going down, if the patient is in really difficulty, then comes the intubation. Intubation and all we don't advise. It should be monitored in a good center by a intensivist only. So otherwise, this is a good gadget.
Okay. So thank you so much, doctor. And as a final statement, what would you recommend as a healthy practice which we have to follow during this situation?
The time and again I have been telling you, take care of your food. Water particularly, many people they don't consume water. There is no restriction of taking water in both the disorders. Many Indians I have seen, they don't consider water as a food. I always keep on telling your hydration is much more important. Minimum 2.5 to 3.5 liters of water, a fruit a day, vegetables, your food habits, and as far as COVID is concerned, the standard protocol of keeping a distance, wearing a mask, washing the hand. Otherwise, nothing. Particularly, don't delay to go to a correct place. But unfortunately, again, I can understand if they land up in a multi-speciality hospital, the finance also. We don't know many of these IBS patients. Either they will be working teachers or something. I always feel sorry if they have government hospital, they don't get proper treatment. Proper treatment means they don't have facilities there. I don't blame government doctors, but the facilities why already is there is a heavy rush. They don't get. If they get into a corporate hospital, it is erasmic. Before they come out, they cannot come out without half a lakh. This is the biggest problem. They can buy a scooter for that money. So they should be
Yeah.
really, they not only health, they have to look into their financial problem. And somehow this is very, very important. They must be, I don't scare IBD. There are, as you know, lakhs of people are there. The best way, learn to live with your problem. No psychological upsets or tensions. And I have seen, yak doctor ನನಗೆ ಹಿಂಗ ಆಗೋಯ್ತು, forget about it. There are a lot of people with a worst problem than this IBD, and this is much better than there are many diseases which we come across in our practice. They are worse than this. This you can live with that. Never curse anybody. Never think that you are exclusively selected for nothing like that. There are lakhs of people with this problem, and many a number of time I feel sorry for them because it is not their fault. At least some fellow who smokes a cigarette, BD, or he takes alcohol, he gets into cirrhosis. It is his fate. But many people we have seen, they get this problem for no fault of them. But anyway, be aware. It is not one person. There are many, many people with this problem. I'm sure in future we are going to get some wonderful drugs. Without immunosuppression, can we manage? Science is advancing so fast. I will tell you, a good day will come. To give you a small example before concluding, when I was a medical student, young surgeon, we used to put 6 inches incision on the abdomen to take out the gallbladder or a colon. Today, then came keyhole surgery. One 10 millimeter hole in the umbilicus, another 10 millimeter hole above, another 5 millimeter. We used to take out the gallbladder. Today, the latest development is NOTES, natural orifice transendoscopic surgery. Dr. Nageshwar Reddy in Asian Institute of Gastroenterology in Hyderabad gave a demonstration to us, our Surgical Society of Bangalore. He went through the mouth, through the scope, he punctured the stomach, went to the gallbladder, he dissected the gallbladder, removed the gallbladder from mouth, kept it on the table. Similar way, he removed an appendix from the mouth and kept it in the table. Of course, this was a demonstration in a pig, but it is going to be in human beings also. That is the state of advancement as far as science is concerned. I definitely give a good hope to all those who are suffering from this
Thank you, doctor.
immunocompromised disease.
But the drugs, whatever is available, is so expensive these days.
So
Like,
much.
no, not everyone can afford for a biologic. So, what would you suggest in that case? Like, what are the action points which we have to follow?
This is where, as a doctor, I have got a suggestion to the government. Unfortunately, lowest budget is given to healthcare in India. It doesn't happen in England. NHS is there. All these costly drugs are given free there. That kind of at subsidized rate. Government should realize this. It is not single person. When they give so much of money for unnecessary things, they should, this is the job of the health education minister or health minister. That's why I always personally feel the health minister should be a doctor only. I hope one day I will become an health minister and I will see that everything
Hopefully, do.
will be subsidized. I, I
And
want all of you to wish me that I should become a health minister.
surely, surely, doctor. And what do you think is the awareness rate about inflammatory bowel disease in our country?
Very, very bad. Not only among patients, very bad among doctors. Kindly take an interview, go to many doctors, ask few questions. Honestly, they will not answer. Honestly, they don't know. Let me be very frank. Because of Lavanya and you, before sitting, actually, I made a notes of IBS. IBD, I wanted to prepare tonight. I thought I am talking on IBS. Anyway, luckily, I was able to answer some of your questions, but I'm yet to go to a detailed study of. In fact, I gave a talk in Chennai last time for a postgraduates and IBD only. But honestly, I will tell you, ask many doctors. And again, in our country, one problem, no, unscientific way of treating. Ayurveda fellow tells, I will cure it. Homeopathy fellow, he will say, I will cure it. Another fellow will come and tell you, Yeno bada kadamma, go to Tirupati, pray God, you will be cured. Or go to Kukke Subramanya, eat mud from Mutta, you have got Nagadosha, you will be cured. Unfortunately, they get into a desperation makes a patient to go to alternative treatment. Believe me, it's a psychosomatic disease. They all come under that group, including, believe me, I'm a surgeon sitting in front of you like a European doctor, and this was not my original color. My color changed. When I had two colors, many suggested to me only, Illa doctor, Gati Subramanya Kogi, Vedli, Naga Kodi, Kukke Subramanya Mandtini anta. Can you believe I have done that? Desperation.
Okay.
All these chronic disorders make people desperate. They go to alternative system. They spend their money, lose their health. So public education and awareness. What is this disorder scientifically? Is it really required? What kind of which is the best treatment? Really, awareness not only among patients is really not good among the doctors also. I'm telling you this frankly.
So, what measures do you suggest, like how to create this awareness?
And you should have a good group. You should definitely, what you have done is really wonderful. Today,
Okay.
of course, there are a lot of way to communicate to proper peoples. And I suggest my colleagues, definitely, if you are treating a case of all these, kindly be prepared, be aware of the latest things available, attend seminars, see a lot of new things will be coming. See, the problem is, see, our difficulty, believe me, I have to see a case of diarrhea, ulcerative colitis, thyroid cancer, brain tumor, everything. This is where Indian doctors, I told you, many of my colleagues should not mistake me. Paronychia also I will treat, perianal abscess also I will treat. I will never be an expert in any particular thing. That is where we find it difficult. In our routine practice, we see all kinds of. This doesn't happen in Canada. If there is a doctor who is treating, he is treating only ulcerative. If he is treating right knee, he will be a surgeon for right knee only. You don't even touch left knee. That kind of a system is not there, unfortunately, in our country. That is where we find difficult. But a sensible person like me, I'm a teacher. So at least in medical colleges, they should take up this kind of a thing, and any research should reach a common man. My research,
Yeah.
my study, it should reach a common man. And ultimately, I will tell you, with all these things, you know, which is the most powerful medicine ever discovered on earth, not only for ulcerative colitis, for any disease.
Okay.
Believe me, when I was an undergraduate student at Government Medical College, Ballari, one day my lovely teacher, who is no more today, Dr. R.H.N. Chennai, enters the class. We are 120 students. He was supposed to teach us hernia, but initially he creates a curiosity. Look here, young boys, Today I am going to ask you a simple question. All of you should answer. I was curiously waiting. I was one of the most studious students sitting in the first bench. He asked, which is the most powerful medicine ever discovered on earth? I suddenly got up, sir. I said gentamicin. Gentamicin had come to market at that time. So I had read in a
Okay.
newspaper. And some other boy said amikacin. Ultimately, my teacher, young boys, all of you sit down. I will tell you the answer, which you should remember throughout your life. It is not the costly antibiotic that is powerful. It is not the powerful antibiotic that is the best medicine. Words are the most best medicine. Words, keep it in mind. Words are
Oh,
the best medicine ever discovered on earth. The way in which you speak to your patient, the way in which you console your patient, the way in which you touch the patient, that is the most powerful medicine. Honestly, I'm telling you, I carry these words even today. I teach my students. It applies to ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. In addition to giving you all the medicines, the way in which I manage you, listen to you, pat you on your back, empathize with you, not sympathize. That will definitely cure 50% of your disease. This is a real right
very
message.
true.
As a senior teacher, I want to give it to you and everybody. My words are much better than your anti-immune drugs. My words are better than many drugs. That better than in the sense they should be there with my treatment. That is my message to all of those who are listening to me. Go to your good doctor. Your doctor should empathize with you. Then only definitely you will go home with happiness that you have been treated by a very nice qualified person. So in addition to my qualification, MBBS, MS, FICS, FRCS, all these things, my words, my way of talking to you, my way of advising you really works.
Very true, doctor. Very true. So, thank you so much for spending time with us and giving so much of knowledge about Corona and also IBS. Thank you so much, doctor.
Very lovely. Thank you all. If there are anything, some, I will clarify in the next week if some, any by
Yes, yes.
improperly conveyed
No,
message.
doctor. Any queries? Like maybe we'll have
Yeah,
one more session definitely with
yeah,
other
please. I
questions.
will tell Lavanya to arrange one more session
Yes,
so
yes.
that I will be able to give you some more feedback on this
Thank
topic.
you.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much.
much, doctor.
Lovely.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you everyone for joining us and hope to see you in our next session. Thank you.
Okay,
अरे निखिल